I was looking at the wrong timer, waiting to see if this was starting. I was like, why is the number not going up? It's like, brain, that's the one that says live. You want to look at the one that says rec. Because I'm about to wreck this recording with my stupidity. That's not what I meant. Hello, dudes! Axel here. So, this is going to be completely unscripted, as many of my videos are anyway. But, you know, completely unscripted. I'm finally getting around to that Linux follow-up video I kept talking about, since I pretty much covered all the things that I wanted to with the Axel's setup type stuff, I think. I don't think I've missed anything. If there's anything that I did miss that you guys can think of, let me know. So, since all that stuff is pretty much done as far as I'm aware, we're going to move on to this. So, we're going to talk why I use Linux, why I've ditched Windows. Yes, I have completely ditched Windows at this point. More on that later. And, my recommendations as far as things. So first off, we're going to go over what I'm using right here. So this is, let me open up the info center real quick because that'll make going over things a little easier. Okay, this is KDE Neon, the, okay, they have both a long-term support version and a regular user edition. This is the regular user edition. So KDE Neon is a distro. Well, they say it's not a distro, but it's a distro. Anyway, this is a distro based on Ubuntu. Ubuntu is basically the most popular distribution of Linux. So Ubuntu is like the big dog. There's a lot of derivatives of it, and a lot of things that tend to be based on it. There's other Linux distros based on other things, and some that are just their own thing, but for the most part, a lot of them are based on Ubuntu, because it is basically the biggest one with the most support and whatnot. Anyway, this is KDE Neon, based on the long-term support release of Ubuntu, but it is with the latest and greatest KDE software, and KDE, they make what they used to refer to as the K desktop environment, but now it's KDE Plasma desktop, which is what I'm using here, which I quite like, and it's also very customizable. By default, this panel here is at the bottom. I move it to the top because it's kind of easier for me with how my monitor is, because I have my monitor kind of low. I know in some place I've seen it recommended, actually, that you have your, like, the top of your monitor roughly at eye level, so that's how I have things. So in that sense, makes sense to have the panel on the top. I would have it on the side, but for some reason that was kind of breaking things. Whatever, horizontal's fine. I would like, I do kind of prefer having it on like the side though, because, you know, more screen real estate. But I mean, I have a big enough screen anyway. It's 1440p, so I got plenty of pixels to work with. Perfectly fine here. So there's that. I forgot what else I was going into. Right, KDE Plasma. Love it. Super customizable. Like, this menu is not the default menu. The other one, I would show it, but then I would lose all my favorites here, because that's an unfortunate thing that happens there. Yeah, super customizable, and I love it. So, that also kind of leads into why I prefer Linux over Windows in general, because Windows, you have, like, as much freedom as you want, basically, as far as your knowledge allows. Whereas with Windows, you know, that's the walled garden locked down by Microsoft, and it's getting even more so that way lately. I know recently they started doing their Windows 10S thing, which for now, as far as you know, is just limited to like some lines of laptops, or like low power laptops or something that can't run Windows proper, I guess. I don't know the full details, but yeah, their Windows 10S is also limited to only being able to use software from the Windows Store. So, locked down even further. Now, that's as far as it goes for now. Supposedly, you also have the option to upgrade that to the full Windows 10 Pro. But, now's not the time. Fuck. Okay, I'm assuming that's on the latest video that I put up, which was put up, like, a little bit before now. You can see what time it is in the top right corner. See, I don't know if you can have seconds showing in Windows, but you can here. Anyway, that's like super minor thing. Yeah, Windows, walled garden, also, you know, of course, all the privacy concerns with Windows. Yeah, in short, I just don't like Windows at all. The only upside it has for me, and even that was not enough to keep me using it, is that most games are available on Windows. But while obviously I don't have access to my entire games library, I do still have access. What? No, I said Steam, not Sta. What are two of these? Alright, I know I had two of those. Don't worry about that. I don't have access to my entire library, but there is still a good amount that I do have access to. Which, okay, well, I mean, I say that, but it's like roughly a third of my games library, which isn't bad when you think about it, considering that a crap load of those games are from Humble Bundles and whatnot. So, I mean, 92 out of 269, that's, you know, again, roughly a third of my entire games library, but I have a bunch of decent games here, you know, a bunch of stuff. We got Amnesia, BioShock Infinite, I need to play that sometime. Sometimes, and I'll probably stream that sometime soon, actually, because I've never played a BioShock game. The first two aren't natively available on Linux, but, I mean, BioShock Infinite is, so why not? As far as I'm aware, it's kind of disconnected from the others in terms of story, but, yeah. So we got that. We got Borderlands 2 in the pre-sequel. Black Mesa, that's mod for, well, I guess not, like, what is it, like, remake of Half-Life 1 on Source Engine 2 or something. I know what it is, I just don't know how to describe it. You guys probably know what it is. Chivalry, City Skylines, Counter-Strike Source, of course. Like, pretty much any Valve game is on Linux as well, so that's pretty good. I'm pretty sure Counter-Strike Go would be here if I had that too, but obviously I don't have it. Let's see, Dying Light. Several Total War games. Total War series is fantastic, by the way, if you haven't played it. The Escapists, your Truck Simulator, Firewatch, Game Dev Tycoon, Gary's mod. I need to mess with that again sometime. That was fun back in the day. Ah, man, I was like, fuck, I think I last played that. Oh, man, I haven't played, like, anything on Gary's mod in forever. Goat Simulator. That too, like I said, all the Half-Life stuff. Hatoful Boyfriend, obviously the most important one. Obviously. Killing Floor, Life is Strange. I streamed that recently. That was done from Linux like this. Little Inferno, Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. We don't get all of the AAA games, of course, on Linux, but we get a good number of them. We certainly get a good number of them. See whatever Mountain is, Payday 2, Plague Inc., Polybridge, Portal, all that stuff, Postal 2. So yeah, we get a lot of games. Oh yeah, also the Saints Row series. We might not have GTA on Linux, but we got Saints Row, and Saints Row is fun. I think overall I prefer GTA, but Saints Row's good fun. I should install that actually. I kind of want to play that again sometime too. Not so much Saints Row 2. I mean, somewhat Saints Row 2, but mostly the 3rd and 4. I need to play those again sometime. That sounds good. I should install those. Civilization 5. Bunch of Star Wars games. A bunch of older Star Wars games. Especially like Knights of the Old Republic 2 here. Oh man, I gotta play that too. I'm just going through this list, and how many times have I said I need to play that sometime within this one video here. Yeah, pretty much any non-Switch game that I've streamed within the past month or so was all from Linux. So again, I am giving up a lot of games. 269 versus 92. There's a bunch that I'm giving up. But I just flat out don't like Windows. And I don't want to use it. So I'm not. Now, that being said, obviously games are like one of the biggest, if not the biggest thing keeping people from like switching to Linux, because you know a lot of people that are on PC, like on the consumer side of things, that aren't just using them for like web browsing or work or whatnot, they're using their PC to play games. Windows is still the place for that. If you are a hardcore gamer, unless you really hate Windows and are okay with giving up a bunch of games like I was, don't switch to Linux. Like I mean, if you're okay with either having like a secondary computer, or I wouldn't necessarily recommend dual booting. It's entirely possible. I did it for a while up until like a week or two ago when I finally got rid of Linux, or got rid of Windows, not Linux. But overall, would not recommend dual booting, at least not on like a single hard drive. If you have like two hard drives, like a second one to have Windows on, that might work just fine, might work better. I imagine it could work better than having it all on the same drive, but anyway, yeah. So if you're a hardcore gamer, like you'll want to keep Windows in some capacity. You will want to keep Windows because otherwise you will lose access to a lot of your games. That being said, that was just like native Linux games that I showed there. There's also a bunch more that are technically available through a thing called Wine, which is basically like a Windows compatibility layer for Linux. So with Wine, you actually do get access to quite a few more, including, for you MMO fans out there, I can find it, Star Wars The Old Republic. That works perfectly on Linux if you're using Wine. I've tested it for a good, 2 minutes, and I didn't leave my ship, but yeah, it works perfectly on Linux through Wine. So if there's any Star Wars The Old Republic fans out there, and if for whatever reason that's the only game you play, Linux could be something to look into if you're willing to learn a new operating system, because that's the other thing. Yeah, for switching to Linux, you do also have to learn a new operating system. Like, you can't go in expecting things to be the same as when you left Windows. A lot of things will be similar, extremely similar. I mean, they're both, personal computer operating systems. So then it's not going to be like insanely different, but it will be different. So, like, for example, on Windows, your I was going to say your home directory. That's not really what it is on Windows. It's more like the documents and whatnot. Like, everything's kind of all around, all over the place in a mess. Whereas with Linux, all of your personal files, everything related to configuration and whatnot of your programs for that specific user, it's all within your home directory. So in that sense, if you've used a Mac, I think they're similar because, Mac is Unix-based, Linux is Unix-like. I think they're both kind of on that same philosophy, where with, I don't even know how to describe how Windows has it, but with Linux, it's like an upside-down tree, or upside-down tree, because it starts from the root, which then branches out into many other things from there, but everything is within roots. It just spreads out from there. It's all nice and organized. Well, it feels a lot more organized than Windows, let's put it that way. Because if you're finding save files or configuration stuff, you don't have to go searching around where the fuck is this thing? I mean, okay, you kind of do. Actually, that is a thing you kind of have to do, because actually with Windows, a lot of them are just in the My Games, blah blah blah, that folder. With Linux, you can't have to do too much searching, because for the most part, they're either under .config in for example, Egosoft X3. There's my saves there. Others, local share, other save files will be there. It's generally within those two folders, by the way. Anything with a dot in front of it is hidden in Linux. Also, by the way, file names and folder names are case sensitive. So, for example, we have that music folder right there. If I make another folder called lowercase m music, it's there and it's all just fine. Now, that's both awesome and kind of disadvantageous, because for those of you who were watching my Stardew Valley stream, that did also cause a problem there. It was a very minor thing, but it did still cause a problem, because the Stardew Valley, if we go to my games folder here, let's see, Steam Games, Steam Apps. If we go to Stardew Valley, it was the content folder. The Mines folder here was in there with a lowercase m. Nothing else in here. Nothing else in here starts with a lowercase letter for those content folders. It was just the Mines folder. But that did cause a problem when I was trying to access either a cave or the mines in Stardew Valley. So luckily, with Linux, you can I keep saying these things okay, with Linux you can do this thing. It's probably possible to do some of these things with Windows as well, because what I was about to say was, luckily with Linux, you can run stuff through the terminal and then pay attention to things. The terminal, by the way, is just command line. We call it the terminal in Linux. It's pretty cool. Anyway, so yeah, the way that I was actually able to troubleshoot and fix that was because I ran Stardew Valley through the terminal, and it showed a bunch of debug stuff. So when I went into the cave, it was like trying to load content from this place, but we can't find it. So I was like, what? You can't find it? It was saying like, looking for stuff in mines, and it's not there. So I went in here and I was like, wait, but there's a mines folder, and I was like, oh yeah, Linux is case sensitive. So simply renaming that folder, game works perfectly now, yay! That was a very specific example, but what I'm trying to get at here, I think, is that in some ways, Linux can be a little less user-friendly, well, a little less newbie-friendly, let's put it that way, if you don't know what you're getting into. But in a way, it also kind of forces you to learn more about your computer, which I say that very loosely. It doesn't really force you. There's plenty of distributions that handle things like normally just fine, but yeah, kind of gets you to learn more about computing, but at the same time, it also, like, in some instances, depending on what you try to do, you'll have to learn how to troubleshoot on your own, but Google is amazing. That's all that I have to say about that. And other times, if you figure out, like, just how things work, you can be like, okay, if I run this to the terminal, I know that I can see, like, what will happen when that error occurs. Maybe I can figure things out from there. So, yeah, it's kind of, in my opinion, easier to troubleshoot your own system, especially because since everything is all open and free, people who work on it, like, since everything's all open source and free and whatnot, what am I trying to say? Like with Windows, for example, if you have errors, it won't really tell you what the error is. It's just kind of like, okay, Windows has encountered a problem. It's like, what the fuck was the problem? And you don't really have a way of knowing, because, like, in my experience, error logs are useless most of the time. But with Linux, if you experience an error and if you keep being able to repeat it, you can run the program from the terminal, then see what happens when that happens. So, yeah. Anyway, this is going on for quite a while, but long story short, I no longer have Windows on my computer because so like I said, I had to give up a bunch of my games, yes, but there's also a bunch less I didn't really have to give up thanks to things like Wine, which there's a lot of arguments with Wine because some people are like, okay, well, I mean, if you're using Wine, people aren't going to bother making things for Linux because you're running the Windows version of it. But at the same time, if people are on Linux, even if they're running Wine, the fact is they are on Linux. So it would still kind of tell the developers, okay, people are using Linux anyway. Maybe we should make like a Linux version and then just make it better for them. Not guaranteed to happen, but it could. So, yeah, but plus, Wine is great if you're coming from Windows. So not everything will work perfectly through Wine. A lot of things don't, especially most recent games, like DirectX 11 and I want to say DirectX 10 and beyond, because as far as I'm aware, any game that runs on like DirectX 9 and before that should be fine, but no guarantees there. I know Vulkan is going to help a lot with that because that's cross-platform, so that's fantastic. But either way, though, for the most part, by switching to Linux, I did have to give up a lot of my games, but I'm okay with that. As much as I do consider myself a gamer, I am okay with giving up a lot of the games that I played for the sake of not running Windows. For the reasons that I stated earlier. It's probably more that I could go into that I'm not thinking of right now. See, this is why you should script things, but I'm lazy and I wanted to do this, and many of you are probably also wondering, well, why aren't you streaming today? There's reasons for that. Why I haven't been streaming nearly as much lately. I've been kind of freaking out over not being able to find a job because I need to find a job I haven't been able to. But that's not the point of this video. So yeah, had to give up a lot of my games. I had to give up a lot of my games, but again, I'm okay with that because not only is Linux more private, because like they don't like steal your information to the extent that Windows does. I'm not going to say they necessarily can't, because everything is connected to the internet. People can get your data. This is kind of how it is, regardless. But at least at least with Linux, your operating system is not the one directly doing that, like with Windows. Two. What was I talking about? Right. Two, Linux is free in both the sense that it doesn't cost you anything monetarily, unless you, well, okay, correction. Some distros do charge a little bit, but you know what? That's fine. The software might be free for us, but it's not free for the developers. So if you're gonna use free and open source software, consider donating to the projects, because they work hard for this stuff. Like OBS, for example. I haven't donated to them yet, but I mean, I can't imagine using anything but OBS for my recordings and streams at this point. It is like super ingrained into my workflow. Speaking of, though, I've finally started having some issues with my video editing software, KDE Live. The video that went up before I started recording this, it was like More War, that one. Yeah, I finally started having issues with KDE Live. Like, it started like having a couple random crashes, and for some reason, when I was like deleting stuff, like deleting parts of clips from the timeline, they would like stay, but they weren't actually there, but it looked like they were there. So that was kind of weird. Never had that happen before. But then a lot of my more recent videos haven't been very editing heavy like that one was. So I don't know. That was kind of weird. Still kind of considering looking into other stuff, but I am happy with KDE Live for now. But that's another thing I need to go into, actually, after I finish my tangent here. So yeah, Linux is free and open source. So it's free in both the sense that it does not cost you anything, for the most part. Some exceptions, but mostly it will not cost you anything monetarily. And in the sense of freedom, liberty, libre, like LibreOffice. That has Libre, like, well, I don't use LibreOffice anymore, but, yeah, free as in liberty and freedom and all that stuff, and then open source. Anybody can do what they want with the code. They can fork something like their own program. That's how LibreOffice came about. It was forked from OnlyOffice, and then it turned into LibreOffice, and now OpenOffice is dead, but LibreOffice is like, woo, we're still on top. Well, on top in terms of the free and open source Office suites. Microsoft Office is there. But that's proprietary crap. Who cares about that? Except for a lot of businesses. That being said, though, from what I hear, a lot of not in the US mostly, but a lot of other countries' governments are like more and more switching to free and open source software for cost saving, which is great. But I know some of them are doing it not just for the cost saving, but for doing it because it's free and open source, so that's fantastic. Hopefully more stuff in the US starts doing that. That'd be great. Get rid of Microsoft's grip over things. See, the way I see it, the only reason that Microsoft is on top like they are is because they have the money to back up what they do. And at this point, okay, it started based on that, still kind of continuing based on that, but also because that's what, like, 90% of the population knows. They know Windows. If they use a computer, if it's not Windows, it'll either be Mac, or it'll be like, or okay, they'll either see it and it's like, oh, this is Mac, what the fuck? Or it'll be something completely different and they're just like, what the fuck is this? Because like so many people are just so used to Windows. Now I know there's a bunch of Mac users out there, of course, but as far as the desktop, Windows has like, like almost 90% market share. Mac has like 5-ish%. Linux is, are they up to 2% now, or is that Steam I'm thinking of? So yeah, Linux usage is tiny, but it's slowly rising. And then Windows is just like the juggernaut, as everybody knows. And so it makes sense that it's still king, because that's what everybody knows. It's what like kids are introduced to when they're younger. That's what people are used to using. That's what people have been using for years. So yeah, that kind of went off in a completely different direction than I started with, I think. What was my original point? Hold on. Okay. Linux respects your privacy, which also ties into the fact that it's free and open source. And because it's free and open source, it's better to respect your privacy, because everybody can look at the code. So it kind of has to be. or else people will be like, what the fuck? We're taking this code out. That's awesome. There's going to be a third point there. Right. Linux, for me, is just more fun to use. Which also kind of ties back into the it's free and open source part. You can do whatever you want with it. You can install whatever you want. And, like, for example, I'm talking about free and open software a lot here, but here I am using Google Chrome, mostly because, like, Firefox is fine. There's also Chromium, the free and open source version of Chrome. Like, it's fine, but as far as like things like, for example, Hulu and Netflix as well, if you like are subscribed to either of those, you'll need something like Chrome. Firefox might work for, I don't know if Firefox work. I think Firefox would work for Hulu, and recently Firefox also now works for like Amazon Prime Video, but it's pretty much, so if you want to stick with mostly free and open source stuff, probably want to go with Firefox, because I don't really troubleshoot too much, but when I tried looking at, like, again, for example, Hulu on Chromium, the open source version of Chrome, even though I did have protected playback stuff enabled, it was like, you do not have the playback of protected content enabled on this browser. We recommend Firefox. But yeah, stuff like that works through Chrome. So Chrome or Firefox, probably your best bets for browsers. If you want to make sure you have access to like every single bit of thing you had access to on Windows. With some exceptions, there are some exceptions, unfortunately, that are kind of annoying, but that's a very kind of more of a niche thing, so I'm not going to go into that too much. But yeah, Linux is just more fun to use, because now some desktops are more limited than others, but like I was saying earlier, KDE Plasma here, super customizable, probably the most customizable of like any Linux desktop, any and all Linux desktops. I have like a zoom thing I can do here. That's more of like a effect thing, but that's a terrible example, but that's just one thing, because I don't want to try to do too much in case like it breaks the recording or something. It could happen, probably won't. Yeah, so this is fantastic. For people that are new to Linux, Linux Mint Cinnamon is also fantastic. I recently put that back on my laptop. I was running KDE Neon on my laptop, but then I was like, I want to give Linux Mint a chance again, because the first distro that I ever tried, and to this day I cannot think of any major problems I ever had with it, was Linux Mint with the Cinnamon desktop. Because like the Cinnamon desktop is like their flagship. It's also very Windows, like traditional Windows style of window management and stuff. So like, imagine this is on the bottom real quick. Kind of looks pretty similar to how I have this panel set up actually, except again, on the bottom. Quiet email! I should have turned off notifications for this. Anyway, yeah, imagine this is on the bottom. I could just move it, but I'm lazy. But like, basically, the Cinnamon menu kind of looks a lot like this actually, which I didn't realize until I reinstalled it on my laptop, and I was like, wait a minute. That menu. And I looked at this again. I was like, huh, those look super similar. Why do I still have that in there? Hold on. I don't want you in my application menu. Get out of there. There we go. Nice and clean. Anyway, yeah, Linux Mint Cinnamon menu basically looks like this, except like, not exactly like this, because that'd be weird, but, because they're different desktop environments, but yeah, basically looks like that. And the task manager is actually similar to this too. Got like your favorites pinned on one side, and they get over here. This functions a little differently though. I'm rambling again. Yeah, so essentially pretty similar to this, except on the bottom and dark, unless you change the theme, which is always nice, because the themes in Linux Mint, they do look fine, but there's better ones you can find that'll look nicer if that suits you. I need to stop rambling. This video's gone on for like half an hour now. That's fine though. That's fine. These rambly type videos are fun. Very unfocused, but still fun. Oh yeah. 4. You update what you want to when you want to. Unlike Windows, that's like, hey, there's updates, we're gonna restart now. You're like, wait, I'm working. No, restart. Not to mention updates on Linux also are faster. And the overall experience and like for me at least, is a lot faster and smoother. Even considering that, again, this is my main workstation slash gaming computer desktop right here. Even considering I'm running a i7 4770K with a GTX 770, even considering that, this like Linux just feels so much like snappier, faster. So performance is absolutely better with Linux as well. But I should probably wrap this up before I keep going on tangents. So in conclusion, I love Linux. I was okay with giving up Windows completely for it. You might not be. Another thing I was going to mention, right, before I get to my conclusion actually, multimedia type stuff like video editing and whatnot. Now, obviously we have OBS, so streaming and recording is just fine. But as far as the video software side of things, okay, so I use KDE Live. Open that up real quick. I use KDE Live, which is great, but it is if you're used to things like Adobe Premiere, this is not going to be a replacement for it. Like, not at all going to be a replacement for it. An alternative, yes, but certainly not a replacement. Easily a replacement if you're using something like iMovie or Windows Movie Maker, I would imagine. I've never used iMovie. I've never used a Mac except for like one time back in the day. Wasn't for that long. Wasn't very enjoyable at the time because it was a slow Mac. But anyway, yeah, if this is absolutely better than Windows Movie Maker, but it's not going to be a replacement for something like Adobe Premiere and whatnot. So, again, if you're a gamer or a serious like video content creator, Linux might also not be the best idea for you unless you run. Okay, so hold that thought for a second. I'm gonna go here real quick. That all being said, DaVinci Resolve is on Linux, but they only officially support Red Hat Linux and CentOS. Red Hat is a one of those paid distributions, but they like provide it like as a service rather than like how Windows does it, where you pay them and it's like, okay, you bought the license for it. Here you go. You're not licensing it. You're paying for like the support and whatnot from Red Hat for Red Hat Linux. And there's CentOS, which is derived from Red Hat Linux, just without any of the like the trademarked stuff. And it's like the free. Basically, CentOS is the free version of Red Hat Linux, to put very simply. Anyway, DaVinci Resolve only officially supports Red Hat Linux and CentOS. So I'm sure it would work perfectly fine on those, but on anything else, I and apparently others are not really able to get audio out working. So the editing of videos itself works just fine. You just can't hear the videos. You can't hear the audio from the videos. So hopefully sometime in the future they extend their official support to more Linux distros, and that can get fixed. But that being said, DaVinci Resolve is more for like, well, probably would be better for like bigger, more professional projects anyway. As a lot of content creators probably know, DaVinci Resolve is like great for color grading. In my limited usage of it, definitely seemed that way when I was testing it, but again, could not get the audio out working. I assume that would work fine on like CentOS and whatnot, but for the most part, if you're switching to Linux in general, like CentOS would be great for stability stuff, but if you're like me and you want the latest and greatest software, you would want to run something else like Ubuntu or some derivative of Ubuntu or like Fedora or something like that to get later versions of software, and this might not work properly on all those. That's kind of a problem. Plus, compatibility with like a bunch of common file types is not really there in my experience, because to actually get my video into DaVinci Resolve, I had to convert it to a specific format before it actually finally started working, which I showed that in my software setup video, actually, which I also kind of talked about these same issues there. So this is getting very redundant now. But yeah, I had to convert them to like a DNxHD thing. I don't even know what that stands for. I just know that that's what worked. But it also made the files a lot bigger, and that was annoying. So, I mean, yeah, there's not really any great professional level video production software on Linux. Like this DaVinci Resolve is definitely promising, but I don't feel like it's quite there yet. At least not on anything that isn't Red Hat Linux or CentOS. Haven't tried it with either of those, but I don't use either of those either. Especially not Red Hat, because I would have to pay for that. But yeah. So as far as video production, if you're used to using something like Windows Movie Maker or similar for your video production, then okay, you'd probably be fine with something like KDE Live. There's also OpenShot, which I hear is getting a lot better. I want to try that again. I want to try that out again sometime. So like KDE Live, OpenShot, those are probably your two best options. There's also like PTV, which development, as far as I'm aware, seems pretty slow on. So it's an option. Don't know how great of an option it is, but it's there. Those are pretty much the main three I can think of. Hopefully things with DaVinci Resolve on Linux get better, because that would be a professional option on Linux, and that would definitely help a lot of people switch over. You would be missing out on like Photoshop. GIMP is pretty good, not amazing. Oh my god, dude, turn off your sound. What am I doing? So many notifications. So yeah, GIMP is good. There's also things like Krita. Speaking of GIMP and Krita, I know in the past in the what was it, my software setup one? Yeah, software setup. I showed like, okay, I started using Krita now because of these things. I looked into GIMP again, installed some plugins, and it kind of works a bit more like Photoshop now, which is cool. But as far as like text and stuff and whatnot, I still feel like Krita does that better. So I'm not fully sure which one I want to use moreover, but yeah, those are options. Let me show those actually. You can see what I'm talking about. GIMP and Krita. Great stuff. Anyway, I should probably finally get to my conclusion. So I'll make you wait a bit longer by sipping coffee. Okay, that was a bit more than just sipping. But yay, coffee. So in conclusion, if you are a hardcore gamer, if you are a content producer who is used to using professional level software, or if you are also doing professional level stuff, like I've heard like CAD software and stuff there's not really great options for that on Linux either, but we're just going to cover the first two, gaming and hardcore video content creation. Linux is probably not your best bet. It's getting there, but at this point, probably not your best bet. If you are a gamer and are okay with the fact you will probably have to give up most of your Steam library, it's an option. Wine is a thing. Doesn't always work perfectly, but it is an option. If you just have like an old computer that you just use for web browsing or something, Linux has web browsers. It works just fine. If you use Office software, and okay, so LibreOffice is pretty great. If you have to work with a lot of like Microsoft Office documents, though, you know, LibreOffice has compatibility issues, but we do have OnlyOffice, which works a lot better with them. Okay, good. None of that is sensitive info. Oh, email purge. Right. I was talking about this. I was tweeting a lot the other night because I was purging a lot of old emails. I had almost 40,000 built up, like just cluttering all my inboxes. They're pretty much, they're all gone now. That was a fun time. Anyway, OnlyOffice is pretty nice. Let me actually bring that up again. Show a new document here. New document. OnlyOffice is pretty nice. It is, in my experience, works very well with the Microsoft Office format stuff. So that's pretty cool. Spreadsheet's pretty good. Presentation's not bad. It only has those three. LibreOffice does have more things that cover more of the Microsoft Office type thing. So OnlyOffice only has these three things. Only has a word processor, spreadsheet, and presentation application. LibreOffice does have more than that. But for what it does have, it does do them pretty well. Not perfect, but it's pretty good. And of course, LibreOffice is also an option. So, in my opinion, Linux is perfectly fine for Office applications. Some people might disagree. I think it's fine. But yeah, overall, like I said, unless you're a hardcore gamer or media content producer, video, otherwise, Linux might not be the best for that. Yeah, unless you're one of those two things, Linux is fantastic. If you are, either be ready to make some sacrifices or stick with Windows in some form. But that being said, I think that's all that I need to have said for this one. So, I'm sure there will probably be many questions because I went on so many tangents with this one. If you do have questions, of course, leave them in the comments below. I'm also over on Twitter at Axel94 and octodon.social at Axel with the actual @ symbol on that one. I've talked about Octodon as well I think I talked about it on stream once, but yeah, it's like basically a free and open source Twitter alternative. Obviously not as popular as Twitter, but I've rambled enough for this video. So if you have any questions, comments, Twitter, Octodon, if you look into that, I'm pretty sure I have a link to that. Did I start putting links to that in my description? I need to start doing that. Future self, start putting those in the description. Haha. So that's down there. Or it should be. Better be. If it's not, damn it, future self, you lazy bastard. It's not going to be there, is it? I'm going to forget. I'm going to forget. Just wait. I will forget. Even though I'm probably going to do it immediately after I finish recording this, I'm going to forget. Just wait. But anyway, that's all for this one. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you dudes later. That's not my outro. That's going to be all for this video, dudes. If you guys like this, make sure to like and consider subscribing, all that good stuff. Make sure to follow me on Twitter and all that other things. I also have a Patreon. Till then, this has been Axel. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you dudes in the next one. There, that was better. That's the outro.